In the dark skies above Gotham City, Batman was on his usual patrol, watching over the streets from the shadows. The city was quiet that night, almost too quiet. He stood on the edge of a tall building, scanning for any sign of trouble. But tonight there was something different, a strange light in the sky, almost like a shooting star, but brighter and moving too fast. It wasn't falling, it was crashing. Suddenly a loud boom echoed through the city, and a bright flash lit up the night sky. Batman narrowed his eyes. This wasn't normal. Without hesitation, he hopped into the Batmobile and sped towards the source of the explosion in the distance. As he got closer, he could see a large crater in the middle of the woods outside Gotham. When he arrived, there was a strange spacecraft in the middle of the crater, half buried in the earth. Batman cautiously approached, his hand on his utility belt, ready for anything. The ship's door slowly creaked open, steam hissing as a figure emerged from within. To his surprise, it wasn't a robot or a monster, it was a woman. But not just any woman, an alien. Her skin was a glowing silver, shimmering under the moonlight, and her eyes glowed a bright blue. She looked injured, leaning against the side of the ship for support. Batman stepped closer, still alert but intrigued. "Who are you?" Batman asked in his deep, gravelly voice. The alien woman blinked slowly, her voice soft but filled with strength. "My name is Zara. I come from a planet far beyond your galaxy. I didn't mean to crash here, but something is coming, something dangerous. Your world is in danger." Batman felt his heart skip a beat. Gotham was always in danger, but this sounded different. He studied her for a moment before responding. What kind of danger? Zara took a deep breath, wincing in pain. "An invasion. They want to take over your planet, enslave your people. I came to warn you and to stop them, but I can't do it alone." Batman stared at her, the words sinking in. He had faced many threats before, but nothing like this. Still, something about her pulled him in. There was something strong yet vulnerable about her. He wasn't sure why, but he trusted her. "I don't work with strangers," Batman said, his voice cold but curious. Zara gave him a small, tired smile. "I'm not asking you to trust me yet, but if we don't stop them together, there won't be anything left to save." Batman hesitated for a moment. He was always a lone wolf, working in the shadows, trusting no one. But this was different. Gotham knew the world needed him, and she needed him too. He reached out a hand. "Let's save the world, then." Zara's glowing eyes met his, and for the first time, Batman felt something strange, a connection, something beyond the mission. She took his hand, her skin warm and soft despite her alien form, and together they stepped into the unknown. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of something bigger. Not just the fight to save the world, but the spark of something between them, something that neither of them expected. Batman and Zara stood side by side, staring into the dark horizon. The night was still, but the tension between them buzzed like electricity. Batman was used to danger, but working with an alien was something new. Zara, on the other hand, was keeping secrets she wasn't ready to reveal yet. As they drove back to the Batcave in the Batmobile, Zara's eyes scanned everything. The city, the buildings, the sky, it was all so different from her home. But there was something about Batman that made her feel safe, even though she barely knew him. Inside the Batcave, the atmosphere was serious. Batman pulled up his digital screens, searching for any signs of the invasion Zara warned him about. "Tell me more about these invaders," Batman said, his voice calm but firm. Zara hesitated. "They are called the Dravons. They destroy planets, taking all resources and leaving nothing behind. My planet, it was one of their first victims." Batman clenched his fists. "How do we stop them?" Zara's face darkened. "It won't be easy. The Dravons are powerful, with advanced technology and an army that never tires." But she trailed off. But what Batman pressed, sensing she was hiding something. Zara looked away. "There's something I haven't told you. The Dravons are led by someone I know, someone I trusted. He was my brother." Batman's eyes widened slightly under his mask. "Your brother?" Zara nodded, pain filling her voice. "He wasn't always like this. He changed when he got power. Now he leads the Dravons, and he won't stop until every planet is under his control." Batman felt a knot form in his stomach. It wasn't just an invasion, it was personal for Zara. But there was something else. Batman's instincts told him there was still more she wasn't saying. Suddenly, alarms blared in the Batcave. Batman quickly turned to the screen. "They're here," he muttered. Gotham's skyline lit up with bright lights as strange, alien ships descended from the clouds. The invasion had begun. "We have to move," Batman said, his voice sharp. He threw on his cowl and grabbed his weapons. Zara's eyes glowed brighter, her alien powers activating. Together, they raced towards the city to face the first wave of Draven soldiers. As they fought side by side in the streets, something strange happened. The Draven soldiers weren't attacking Gotham randomly, they were targeting specific locations. Batman's eyes narrowed as he realized it wasn't a full invasion. They were looking for something. "Zara," he called out, ducking under a Draven's attack. "What are they searching for?" Zara's face went pale, and her movements faltered. Batman noticed and quickly took down the soldier in front of her. "What aren't you telling me?" Batman demanded. Zara's voice shook as she answered. "They're looking for me." Before Batman could respond, a loud explosion rocked the street. From the smoke and debris, a tall figure emerged, his eyes glowing red and his presence terrifying. Batman instantly knew who it was. "Brother," Zara whispered, her voice filled with dread. The Draven leader stepped forward, his cape flowing behind him like a shadow. His gaze locked onto Zara. "So you thought you could run, little sister? You thought you could stop me?" His voice was deep, commanding, and cruel. "I won't let you destroy this planet," Zara shouted, her voice filled with both fear and determination. The Draven leader smirked. "Oh, Zara, you don't understand, do you? I don't need to destroy Earth, I just need you." He raised his hand, and a glowing symbol appeared on the ground beneath Zara. Suddenly, Batman realized what was happening. Zara wasn't just an alien warrior. She was the key to the Draven's entire invasion. They needed her to unlock a hidden power, something that could allow them to conquer not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Batman acted fast, throwing a smoke bomb to break the symbol's power. "We need to get out of here, now," he yelled, grabbing Zara's arm. But Zara didn't move. She looked at Batman with tears in her glowing eyes. "You don't understand. If I don't stop him, he'll never stop chasing me, and he'll destroy everything in his path." Batman shook his head. "We'll stop him." Together just then, the Draven leader roared in anger, sending a blast of energy towards them. Batman barely managed to dodge it, but he knew they couldn't keep running forever. They needed a plan, and fast. But before they could escape, Zara did something unexpected. She stepped forward, turning to Batman with a sad smile. "I'm sorry, but I have to end this my way." "What are you doing?" Batman asked, his voice filled with confusion and concern. "I'm surrendering," Zara whispered. And in the blink of an eye, she raised her hands and walked toward her brother. "Zara!" "No," Batman shouted, but it was too late. The Draven leader grabbed her and vanished into thin air, leaving Batman standing alone in the middle of the destruction. For the first time in a long time, Batman felt powerless. Zara had sacrificed herself to save Gotham, but why? What was she hiding? And how was he supposed to save the world without her? One thing was clear, the battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Days had passed since Zara's sudden surrender, and Batman hadn't stopped searching for her. Every night he scoured the city, using every contact, every tool in his arsenal to track down the Draven leader. He couldn't get her out of his mind. The way she had looked at him before she left, it wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was personal. Finally, one night, a lead came in. Batman found the coordinates to an abandoned facility deep underground, far from Gotham. It didn't take him long to figure out that this was where Zara had been taken. The place was dark and quiet as he entered, but Batman's senses were sharp. He moved through the shadows, taking down a few Draven guards silently, until he reached the heart of the base. There, in a dimly lit room, he saw her. Zara was in a cell, glowing softly in the darkness. She looked tired but unharmed. As soon as her eyes met his, something shifted in the air between them. "Batman," Zara whispered, standing up slowly. Without a word, he smashed through the controls, opening the cell door. Zara stepped out, her silver skin shimmering under the low light. They stood there for a moment, just staring at each other, breathing heavily. The tension between them was thick, and it wasn't just from the danger surrounding them. "Why did you surrender?" Batman asked, his voice low but intense. "Why didn't you trust me?" Zara's eyes softened as she stepped closer to him. "I didn't want you to get hurt. I thought I could end it alone. But now I see I was wrong." Batman took a deep breath, his heartbeat quickening as Zara moved even closer. Her presence felt magnetic, and despite the danger, despite everything happening around them, something else was pulling them together. "You should have let me help you," he said, his voice almost a whisper now. Zara smiled softly. "You've been helping me more than you know." Her hand reached out and touched his chest, just above his armor. Batman froze for a second, feeling a warmth spread through him. It was a simple touch, but it sent a spark through his body, a connection he hadn't expected. He couldn't stop himself anymore. Before he knew it, Batman reached up and gently cupped her face, his gloved hand brushing against her soft skin. Zara leaned into his touch, her eyes glowing brighter as she closed the distance between them. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The world outside, the mission, the invasion, it all faded into the background. All that mattered was this moment. "I didn't want to lose you," Batman finally admitted, his voice raw with emotion. It was something he hadn't said out loud before, something he barely admitted to himself. But it was true. Somehow Zara had become more than just an ally. She had become someone he couldn't bear to lose. Zara's glowing eyes softened as she looked up at him. "You won't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. And then, without warning, she leaned in and kissed him. The kiss was soft at first, almost tentative, but the feeling behind it was undeniable. Batman's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as their kiss deepened. Zara's hands slid up his chest, her fingers tracing the lines of his armor, sending shivers through his body. For a moment they were just two people, caught in something they couldn't control. The intensity between them grew, their breaths quickening as they pressed closer together. Zara's skin glowed brighter, and Batman could feel the heat radiating from her as their bodies moved in sync, lips crashing together with more urgency. There was something raw, almost primal, about the way they touched, like they had been holding back for too long. Zara's hands slid up to his neck, pulling him deeper into the kiss, and Batman's grip tightened around her waist, feeling every inch of her body against his. Finally they broke apart, breathless and flushed. Zara's eyes sparkled as she looked up at him, her lips slightly parted. Batman's heart was pounding in his chest, but he didn't let go of her. "This is dangerous," Batman said, his voice hoarse but filled with something he hadn't felt in a long time. Zara smirked, her glowing eyes filled with mischief. "I like dangerous," Batman chuckled softly, his forehead resting against hers. "I should have known," but as much as they wanted to stay in that moment, they both knew the mission wasn't over. Zara's brother was still out there, and the world still needed saving. "We have to finish this," Zara said, though her voice was softer now, almost reluctant to pull away. Batman nodded, but before they moved he kissed her again, this time slower, savoring the warmth between them. "Together," he said, his voice steady. "We'll end this together." Zara smiled, her heart racing just like his, and as they stepped out of the shadows, side by side, both of them knew no matter what happened next, they weren't alone anymore. And that made them unstoppable. Batman's heart raced as he stormed through the dark base. He hadn't stopped thinking about Zara since the moment she disappeared. He didn't just want to find her, he needed to. Something about her had dug deep under his skin, and it wasn't just the mission. It wasn't just the mission. It was her. He finally found her in a small, dimly lit cell. Zara was sitting quietly, her glowing skin giving off a soft silver light. She looked up as Batman approached, her eyes locking onto his, and in that instant everything he'd been holding back hit him. He needed her safe more than he cared to admit. "Zara," he said, his voice deep and urgent. He reached out and opened the cell door, stepping toward her. "You didn't have to do this alone." Zara stood, her glowing eyes soft but filled with pain. "I thought I was protecting you, protecting everyone." "I don't need protecting," Batman said, his tone a little rough. "Not from you." For a moment they just stood there, the silence heavy between them. Zara moved closer, and Batman could feel the warmth of her skin, even through his armor. She was like no one he had ever known, strong, powerful, but vulnerable in ways she hadn't shown before. "I'm sorry," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. Her glowing hand reached out, lightly resting on Batman's chest. The contact was soft but electric, and Batman's breath hitched. He hadn't realized how much he wanted to feel her touch until now. Without thinking, Batman reached up and gently brushed his fingers across her cheek. Her skin was warm, almost like it pulsed with energy. Zara leaned into his touch, her eyes closing for a moment, as if she had been waiting for this too. "You didn't have to protect me," Batman said quietly. "We're in this together." Zara's eyes opened, and for the first time Batman saw something different in them, not just the alien warrior, but the woman beneath all the strength. She stepped closer, so close that Batman could feel her breath on his face. "I wasn't just trying to protect you," Zara admitted softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I was trying to protect myself, from how I feel." Batman's heart pounded. He had always been in control, always knew what to do. But now, with Zara standing so close, her body almost touching his, he didn't know how to control the pull between them. "What are you afraid of?" Batman asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. Zara's glowing eyes flickered with emotion. This she whispered back. "How much I care. How much I want this." Batman couldn't hold back any longer. In one quick motion, he closed the space between them, his lips crashing into hers. The kiss was filled with everything they hadn't said, every feeling, every unspoken thought. Zara's hands slid up his chest, and Batman pulled her closer, feeling the heat from her body as if it was igniting something inside him. The kiss deepened, slow and urgent all at once. Zara's soft lips moved against his, and Batman lost himself in her touch. His hands gripped her waist, pulling her against him, their bodies pressed together in a way that felt like they had always belonged. Zara's hands tangled in his hair, and Batman could feel his heart pounding in his chest like never before. There was nothing else in the world but them, no mission, no danger, no war, just this moment. Batman's lips moved down to her neck, leaving soft kisses along her glowing skin. Zara shivered under his touch, her breath quickening. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders, pulling him closer as if she never wanted to let go. "Bruce," Zara whispered, using his real name for the first time. It sent a jolt through him. Hearing her say his name like that made everything more real. He paused, looking into her glowing eyes. They were both breathing heavily, faces inches apart. Batman gently cupped her face with one hand, brushing his thumb across her cheek. He hadn't felt this way in a long time, like he was no longer the dark, brooding vigilante, but just a man with feelings that were too strong to ignore. "You're not alone anymore, Zara," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "We'll fight this together. No more running." Zara smiled, her glowing eyes softening. "I don't want to run anymore," she whispered, her lips brushing against his as she spoke. They kissed again, slower this time, savoring the warmth between them. Zara's body melted into his, and Batman held her tightly, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace, even in the middle of chaos. But as much as they wanted to stay in this moment forever, they both knew their mission wasn't over. "We still have to stop him," Zara said breathlessly, pulling back slightly but not breaking the connection between them. Batman nodded, his forehead resting against hers. "And we will. Together." With one final kiss, Batman let go of Zara, but the bond between them was stronger than ever. They were no longer just fighting an alien invasion, they were fighting for each other. As they stepped into the night, ready to face whatever came next, both Batman and Zara knew one thing for sure: no matter what happened, they had found something that could never be taken away. They had found love in the middle of darkness. And that made them unstoppable. After their kiss, something had shifted between Batman and Zara. It was no longer just about saving the world or stopping her brother. There was something deeper, something powerful that neither of them could deny. And now, it wasn't just about the mission, it was about them. They moved swiftly through the underground base side by side. Batman's mind was racing, not just with plans to take down Zara's brother, but with thoughts of her. Every time their eyes met, his heart skipped a beat. There was a new energy between them, one that made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. But as they approached the final chamber, where Zara's brother was waiting, the weight of what they had to do came crashing back. They had to stop him, or the world would fall. "This is it," Zara said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "Once we step in there, there's no turning back." Batman turned to face her, his eyes intense. "I won't let him hurt you, Zara." She smiled, a soft, sad smile. "I know you won't. But this isn't just about me. It's about stopping him before he destroys everything." Batman nodded, though the thought of losing her gnawed at him. He had faced countless enemies before, but this felt different. He wasn't just protecting the city anymore, he was protecting her. They pushed open the massive door, revealing the glowing high-tech command center where Zara's brother, Kalos, stood waiting. He turned slowly, his red eyes glowing with power and anger. "I see you've brought the human with you," Kalos sneered. "Pathetic. You've grown weak." Sister Zara stepped forward, her hands glowing with energy. "I'm not weak. I'm stronger than you could ever imagine, and I'm not alone." Batman stood at her side, ready for whatever was about to come. But just as they prepared for the fight, Kalos smirked. "You think love will save you?" He raised his hand, and the entire room began to shake. The ground cracked beneath them, and suddenly Batman and Zara were flung apart by a powerful force. Batman hit the ground hard, his vision spinning. He groaned, trying to get back on his feet, but the energy Kalos had unleashed was too strong. Zara screamed as she was thrown against the wall, pinned by invisible energy. "Bruce," she cried out, her voice strained with pain. Batman's mind went into overdrive. He couldn't lose her. Not now, not ever. With a growl, he pushed himself to his feet, every muscle in his body straining against the force that held him down. He looked up and saw Zara struggling, her glowing eyes dimming as Kalos drained her power. Batman's heart clenched. He had to stop this. He had to save her. Without a second thought, he pulled out a small device from his utility belt, one he had been saving for a moment just like this. A small imp, he tossed it into the air, and with a loud boom it exploded, disrupting the energy in the room. The force holding Zara down vanished, and she fell to the ground, gasping for breath. Kalos staggered, his power flickering. Batman rushed to Zara's side, pulling her into his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. Zara nodded weakly, her hand gripping his arm. "I'm fine, but we need to finish this." Kalos let out a roar, regaining his strength. "You think you can defeat me? You think your human tricks will work?" Batman stood, helping Zara to her feet. "We'll stop you." Together, Zara's eyes began to glow brighter than before, her strength returning. She turned to Batman, and in that moment, there was a silent understanding between them. They weren't just fighting for the world, they were fighting for each other. With a single nod, they charged at Kalos. Batman used his gadgets, skill, and strategy to distract Kalos while Zara unleashed her full alien power. Her energy blasts crackled through the air, hitting Kalos with precision and force. The battle was intense, but together they were unstoppable. Batman moved like a shadow, dodging Kalos's attacks and striking when the moment was right. Zara, with her glowing hands and fierce determination, fought with everything she had. Finally, after what felt like hours, Kalos faltered. Zara, with one final blast of energy, knocked him to the ground. He lay there, defeated, his power drained. Zara collapsed, exhausted from the fight. Batman rushed to her side, pulling her into his arms once again. "It's over," he whispered, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. Zara looked up at him, her glowing eyes softening. "You saved me," she whispered. Batman shook his head. "We saved each other." There was a moment of silence between them, the chaos of the battle fading into the background. Zara's hand reached up, resting on Batman's cheek, and for the first time they allowed themselves to breathe. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," Zara said softly, her eyes locked onto his. "Someone who'd fight for me, not because of duty, but because they care." Batman's heart raced. He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. "I care about you more than I should, more than I ever thought possible." Zara smiled, her eyes glowing brighter. "I know." And then, without hesitation, Batman kissed her again. This time the kiss was slower, filled with all the emotions they had been holding back. It wasn't just passion, it was a promise that no matter what came next, they would face it together. The world had been saved, but for Batman and Zara, this was just the beginning. They had found something stronger than any power Kalos could have used against them. They had found love,